The room was filled with the sound of clinking plates and drained glasses. By the end of the meal, the Marvins, friends and family, were ready to leave and express their gratitude for the delicious food they had received. They stuffed themselves with ribeye steak slathered in garlic butter, tender and perfectly seasoned potatoes, and steamed carrots cooked with leftover steak sauce. They can choose to drink a nice red from 1953 or, for non-drinkers, and when the guests leave, the desire to be a good host and hostess begins to disappear. Not needing to impress anyone, the Marvins took a deep breath and were ready to make hay. They cleaned the kitchen, washed the dishes, and disposed of food waste. They remembered that they were more stressed when they turned off all unnecessary energy. They needed to put Elliot to bed. He had been angry all night, and the Marvins were tired and angry. "We won't wake up today." It was a mystery every night why Elliot wouldn't sleep in his room. He would always come to his parents' bed and want to sleep with them. But when they did something good, they wanted to give a gift, and only a little bastard could do that. They could get along well with each other at night. "Elliot, sleep in your bed tonight, Mrs. Elliot," said Marvin. "Wait. No. Mom. Please. I promise it was yesterday. I promise." "What do I think of the words, son?" Mr. Marvin asked. "This is a sin." "No, sir." "What did your mother teach you?" "I should sleep in my room." Elliot replied. "He is afraid of what will happen if he sleeps in his bedroom." They didn't understand, and neither did Elliot. What he saw was indescribable. There is no answer or solution on how to tell his parents in his room, "Can I turn on the lights tonight?" "Absolutely not." "Will the big boy come tonight?" asked Miss Marvin. "Don't throw him away. He must become a man and face his fears." That's why Louis isn't in his room. It's dark and everyone is afraid of the dark like a child. Oh my God. My grandfather was afraid of the dark until he was 83. I would be afraid. Don't forget that you killed your Uncle Lenny on New Year's Day. Louis, I didn't tell him to sleep in our room. We will just get light in his room tomorrow. Be no way. I won't raise a girl even if she dumps her, or I'll let the dog take her bed and Elliot sleep in the back. But Rover won't complain or scold. Elliot turned to his father in shock and asked if he was playing, whether he was joking or not. He knew he had to sleep in his room. He became depressed when his parents kept talking about what a liar Elliot was. His mind kept going back to the incident that happened the night before. A chill spread through his body, causing the hairs on his neck to stand up. "He's waiting for me," he said to himself. "What does he want to do to me?" He was later brought back by his father's voice. "Go back to your hotel." Elliot knew what his father meant when he used military words. "Wait, no, please. Dad. I mean you," Elliot replied. Mr. Marvin thought it was odd that he had to use gestures to get Elliot to understand what to do. But when it came to Rover, all he had to do was one simple word. And Rover did what he did ask. "Yes, sir." Elliot quickly ran down the stairs to avoid further punishment. When he reached the top of the mountain, he waited and wanted to listen to his parents' words. If they didn't know, he wanted them not to disappoint him again. "It will end up like it was before I joined the army, Mister," said Marvin, his voice trembling. "Do you think it's hypocritical to ask for help?" Now, this is stupid. Not cowardly service. Not afraid. This means you are human. Not today, ma'am. I don't need your opinion on what makes people. Just sleep. It was a good night until Elliot had to spoil it. Eli's first reaction when she heard her father say this was pain. She then ran to her bedroom before her mother and father arrived. It's not her fault. It's her father. Her boss, it's not. Ms. Marvin replied, "Well, that's like a leader." Ms. Marvin said when she said this. Marvin looked at him and tried to convince him that what he said was a lie. "I'm sorry. Come out. I'll let you sleep on the couch." "No, I'm sorry. Honey, are you listening?" He blinked. They went to their room and did what adults do when they want to be happy. Elliot heard them close the door behind them and thought, "It's time." His father ran into the bathroom and saw Elliot. "I saw that the light was still on. Boy, don't put me there and don't turn off the light myself." Beer and "No, I can do it," Elliot replied. "Then jump in." "Yes, sir. Lights." He quickly turned the lights back to look around. He made sure he knew where everything was. Then he laid them down again and slowly fell asleep. She hid under the covers, hoping they would protect her from everything that happened at night. An hour passed and Elliot couldn't sleep. He was still protecting himself with a blanket. Sweat was streaming down his face, and he was afraid the sweat would come back. He woke her up a few nights ago, and she was paralyzed with fear. His face showed nothing but the worst. Then Elliot suddenly heard a loud noise from the corner of the room. "Don't look. You don't need to look. Ignore curiosity." But he just wanted to see. He needed to know it wasn't her. He should know that it's not him. He looked up from under the covers and saw what he knew was a ghost haunting his room. There was deep anxiety and fear inside him, and he could feel it too. It was dark and impossible to see because it was in a corner with almost no light. He raised his hand and you could see his paws as he waved at her. Elliot's heart dropped. He saw her smiling. Its blade is sharper than Gillette razor. He was drooling from his mouth as if he were an out-of-control bulldog. Even Cujo pales in comparison to his canine teeth. As the leaves begin to fall, their silhouette resembles seasonal branches. Close up, his face may be more prominent. Its eyes are hollow. There are no eyes inside them. Elliot wants to know how he sees her, and why her face shows she's crying. Maybe it was the lines on her bag that gave her the illusion of tears. His eyes are like caves. Apparently you can use these as pencil holders. She rubbed her long nails on the soles of Elliot's feet. The monster was bothering him, and every time Elliot blinked it got closer. So he turned it off, hoping that this would go away if he didn't turn it on anymore. He heard footsteps getting louder and felt his presence approaching. He felt the vibrations of her nails scraping the bed closer. This continued until he felt her warm body and breath on him. He freaked out and started urinating on himself, leaving urine on the blanket. There was a burning smell in the room, and the ghost could smell it, but he didn't listen. He knew nothing could stop this. The demon moved closer to Elliot's forehead. When he approached, a tongue half a meter long came out of his mouth. Then he licked his forehead. Elliot couldn't feel his feet or hands. He was surprised. The monster dug its sharp nails into his eyelids, trying hard enough to reach his eyes. He wanted her to look at him, whether he liked it or not. He was screaming loudly, but sometimes no sound came out. He couldn't hear his voice, but he could still hear the playful sound of the animal. He cut his eyelids and shed blood. The witch licked the tears from her cheeks and swallowed them like the last whiskey in a bottle of Jack Daniels. Despite his blood-colored vision, he could see her, his face gray. He also had dark spots all over his face, similar to those on a cheese pizza. His face is so lined it looks like the ridges of a dime. His skin was hard to the touch, but it was as tough as the bark of a plane tree and looked like it would tear easily. Then he started pressing his hand on the left side of her temple and continued to go deeper. Blood gushes out like a hot knife through butter. Elliot tried to move but couldn't, and tried to move. He felt enchanted. "It's okay, Elliot. Stop fighting," the monster whispered. Elliot was still crying, and it still hurt him. Tears were flowing from the new cuts on his eyelids. Demon grabbed her hip and pulled out a piece of meat from her leg. Then he trampled it before him. Blood appears to be oozing from his leg. The monster locked its eyes on Elliot and enjoyed every little pain he caused him. The demon continued to torture him, feeding on Elliot whenever he felt pain. This is what he wants, the pain and discomfort of the food he eats. What he did next was worse than death. He made her look into his empty eyes, and he could see everything. He saw all the wrongs and dangers leading to this world and the other realms. He saw torture, murder, rape, and even war. The worst part is who suffers, who gets hurt. He felt all the pain. He feels everything and wants it to end. To him it was only a few minutes, but to him it felt like ages. Elliot is starting to give up. He wants to die now. Satan approached his ear and spoke one last word. "I'm yours. You are mine. I'm yours. You are mine. I'm yours. You are mine. I'm yours. You. He's mine. You're mine," he said rhythmically. Elliot, a few hours later, around 7 a.m., Mrs. Marvin went to visit Elliot. She felt very bad after last night and wanted to tell him that she would buy him a lamp for his room. He wasn't prepared for the sight he saw when he opened the door. He smelled the foul smell of urine and offal. He saw his son's body scattered across the room. Mrs. Marvin screamed loudly, screaming her husband's ahathamia. Mr. Marvin heard his wife crying and ran. Mr. Marvin felt guilt wash over him. Woman, Marvin wanted to go back and let Elliot stay in his room. Like a beast, he desires to be eaten by others. A young and innocent child. The devil can be anywhere. Protect your children from monsters in the dark, because from now on they will live or die.